Welcome all! It's draft night again on Primetime Mock, the show where we bring you a different industry draft with new special guests every single week, and we have got a great draft room tonight. I am your host of this draft party, Mark Shu. You can find me on Twitter at Primetime Mock, and then head on over to YouTube and subscribe to our page, Primetime Mock, as well. We've got a great draft for you tonight. It's a single QB Dynastart for us. And I know for me, I'm more of a redraft guy. I need all the help I can get in Dynasty, so I got some really great heavy hitters tonight. First up, from the Dynasty Rewind podcast, we have Michael Bauer. Michael, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming. And Michael came in a little late notice. I had texted him, last night, and he was like, yeah, let's jump on. So I really appreciate you being flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. We love doing mock drafts. We do them. We got one every week, Mondays, on our YouTube channel. So, and they're all Dynasty rookie oriented. So we love doing them over there. I love drafting. I would prefer to draft over playing fantasy, if I could be honest with you. So, but yeah,
well,
thank you for having me.
That's why I started this. I suck at the mid-season game. I'm a much better drafter, I feel like, than I am a mid-season player. And I love the draft, and this is what I'd be doing anyway. So why not bring some fantasy analysts in on the ride, and we'll have some fun with it. All right, next up, we've got from the Dynasty Duo podcast, we've got CJ Kraus. CJ, how are you? Oh, CJ, you're on mute, my friend.
Oh, that's my bad.
What's going on, CJ?
Doing great. I'm super excited to get this going. I love Dynasty, and doing a mock draft is always fun to get prepared. I've done a one QB in a while, so it's going to be a little bit interesting.
Yeah, Superflex is the hotness right now. That's for sure. I haven't done these in a minute, and I tried to get a few going this week, and there's not a lot of bites on the one QB market for a startup Dynasty mock draft.
It's funny because my legal record is actually a one QB. It's a 14-team one QB, and that's one of my favorite leagues. So that's the one that's lasted the longest, though.
I love one QB leagues. I still have no problem doing them, but I think everybody recently that I've been talking to, my friends in fantasy, everybody wants to get in those Superflex league, but we've got a lot of good information coming for this draft right now. Next up, we've got from the Dynasty Bros podcast, Dynasty Bro Vic. What's going on, Vic?
Hey, doing good, man. Thanks for having me. We got a great lineup here, so I'm excited, and I want to shout out to my bros, DJ Avo and Dynasty Bro Dot. Thanks for having me.
Dynasty Bro Dot could not be here tonight. He's in parts unknown. And I thought we were going to have a little bit of a dueling duos thing going on with the Dynasty Duo and the Dynasty Bros. Tyler Karp unfortunately got a case of the flu, it looks like. He's social distancing from us now.
Yeah, he has no voice tonight, so I'm voicing for Tyler, who's picking up the 6th spot as well. So I get to double talk tonight.
And Vic, I hope you're happy enough to be an ambassador for Dot as well.
Man, he's actually going to get a flag on the play for me this week. He actually reached out to me for this. So
I know, man.
Yeah.
What happened there? I was just like, I would love to get your brother on. He was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get it set up. And now, where is he? He's out of town. I don't know what's going on, man.
Exactly,
I gotta talk to that guy.
It's cool. He got a flag coming from me.
That's right. All right, from BallBlast Football, we've got Kate Magdziuk. I'm so sorry, Kate. How are you?
It happens all the time. Even our best friends are like, Kate, Michelle, whichever one of you I'm pointing at. It's terrible, but it's literally the story of our entire marriage. We are virtually inseparable. Thank you so much for having us on. I love single quarterback, and it's something that I don't like to admit on Twitter or anywhere because it's not cool anymore. But the overvaluation, I've always said I want to do like a super flex, but a modified super flex where you get like 0.75 the amount of points where for, if you play a quarterback in that position, even the playing field, because I miss when, it wasn't just all quarterbacks in the first round.
I I do admit I like one QB a little more at this point. I'm in a 14-team Superflex contract league that I put together. Contract league, first of all, super fun if nobody out there has ever played. If you ever want to start a contract league, I've got my bylaws and they're locked up tight. So if you ever want to get at me about the contract league, please do. I ended up winning the championship last year, which great for me, but I did it on the back of Cam Newton, Mitch Trubisky, Phillip Rivers, and Carson Wentz. So it was a rough year. Somehow I ended up making it happen, but now I'm in real trouble. So and in a 14-team Superflex league, it's crazy hard for quarterbacks. But we do have some in the free agency, so I'm hopeful for that. All right, last up, we've got John, the Dynasty coach from Monocle's Dynasty podcast. John, how are you, bud?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on again. I'm definitely looking forward to it. In fact, I'm on the clock right now, so I guess I'm not looking forward to it. I'm doing it. But I did want to say this is my first 1 QB draft in 4 years, so I'm a little rusty.
We all have to take advantage.
It's all right. It just means you get your favorite skill position. That's all it really means.
It does. I mean, I'm definitely, especially being on the turn, being at the 12 spot, like, you kind of have to either take what's there or reach. And so I can definitely see myself doing some reaching here on this one.
That's right. I'm gonna keep you on the burner, John, while you're still making your pick anyway. You were here for our first draft, and we've got another Magdziuk in the room. We've got another Dynasty bro in the room. Are you feeling some nostalgia about this third draft? I feel like we've got a lot of similarities for this one.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were bringing it all back to into the first one, to the initial one, because it's a lot of the same ones. I saw BallBlast. I thought it was going to be Michelle once again, but it's nice to meet Kate and everything. So it's nice to meet Vic as well in place of Dot. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll have a good draft.
Michelle's welcome back at any time, but I didn't feel like getting slapped up and down about Devontae Smith again. So we're just gonna move on from there.
She did before, as I was hopping on here, she was like, we always have to ask each other, like, am I supposed to be in this podcast? Because you never know. But she like almost hopped in. I was like, give me the stage. This is my time to shine with this group of people. So I'm very excited to have the floor, but I'm glad that I didn't have a 5-round rookie mock, because I am loving a 10-round super flex, and I'm going ballsy right out of the gate.
I love it. Najee Harris in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and give me a few words about Najee. Why you think he can go that high?
I'm obsessed with Najee Harris, and I don't know why we're not more excited about Najee Harris and what he could bring to a Steelers offense. I'm a Steelers fan, and even I am happy about the pick, the first round running back. I know I have so many things to be ashamed of on this show. I cheering on the first round running back. I am excited to be in a single quarterback draft, but Najee Harris is a difference maker. He is by far, without a question for me in my mind, going to be a difference maker in the Pittsburgh offense. Last year, though they slowed the run game down in the second half of the season, right around week 11, they were averaging 25 rush attempts per game. If Najee gets even 17 of those, which James Conner was on pace for, I'm going to be very, very happy, and I think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. The Steelers are just obsessed with the workhorse running back.
Yeah, I do have a lot of questions about the Steelers offense, and I wonder if this might be a little bit of a homer pick from you, Kate. But I do think that Najee is almost a lock for like 300 touches. Does anyone feel like he couldn't go I think at the very least 280? Does anyone think any lower than that?
I mean, with the extra game, I think it's 300 is not out of the realm, but I think 250 to 280 is probably like the most realistic.
Yeah, and I'm not even. I mean, yeah, I didn't even think about the 17th game. I probably should, but that's on me.
I keep forgetting about the 17th game. It's screwing up all of my projections. It's doing a number on me mentally, but it's definitely. I think he's going to be a big focal point of that offense. If nothing else, I think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. We saw James Conner be very efficient in the end zone, even last season with a bad offensive line. There's a chance.
Absolutely. I would actually let's go down the line here real quick. Najee Harris, 305 touches over carries or targets. Let's just go down the line. Mike, what do you think?
I feel like that's like right on. I'm going to go slightly under. I think that the offense is creative enough where they might scheme in Anthony McFarland Jr., maybe Jalen Samuels if he's still around. Maybe they pick another free agent running back up closer to the start of the season just to not overwork him too early in his career. Possibly.
CJ, how about you?
I honestly was not listening as I was trying to make my pick.
I hear you. 305 carries for Najee, over under.
I put under. I think 305 is a little bit out of the realm.
Carries, touches.
Oh, touches. I put that as over because he's a good pass catcher as well. So I think he's going to get those touches. I don't think anybody's going to take anything away from him and any use in that range. So I think 305 is a good line. I think that's pretty close to where I would say.
All right, Kate, I know what you want. John, how about you? 305 touches for Najee.
Yeah, if it was last year with the 16 games, I'd probably say the under. Being the 17 games, I might go with the over there. But even then, he's still a rookie. I don't know how good that offense is actually going to be. They don't actually have a QB anymore. They basically just have a guy with a noodle arm, kind of like tossing balls out 2 or 3 yards, and that's about it. So I just don't know how good the offense is. Isn't that perfect
for a running back, though?
It
for
is,
fantasy football leagues.
No, and that's absolutely true. But I just don't know how good the offense is, and if the offense isn't good overall, then they're not going to score as many points. They're not going to have as many touches. They're not going to be on the field as often. That kind of thing. I'd probably still say over because of 17 games, but I think it'll be close.
All right, and Vic, 305 touches for Najee.
I'm taking the under. I mean, I know we all like to be ambitious when it comes to rookies, but I'm trying to be a little bit more level-headed. So, and of course, I got a lot of pass catchers in the room too. So you can't forget about that. And Pittsburgh loves to throw, but of course, I got Najee to help balance that out a little bit. So I'm going to roll with the under.
I love it. Okay, so we're changing up the format a little bit from every week. We're trying to get it a little better every time. We're a show in progress. We embrace that. I embrace chaos all the time, so I like to switch it up. So our format's going to go. I want to hear round by round. What are we thinking our strategy is when we're starting these dynasty startups? CJ, go ahead. You can give me your first couple picks and just talk about your overall strategy. Don't feel the need to keep your cards close to the vest. We're all professionals here, and I just want you to go ahead and give me what your strategy would be at this point in the draft.
It's pretty simple, especially I'm just going best player available, and because I'm on the turn, I have to kind of reach a little bit. Normally, a lot of times I'd be trying to trade out of like that early third if this was the board kind of situation, move back into third. But I just took like CMC was the easy pick for me, and then Jamar Chase and Pitts. I'm going to have them forever, and I think they're the next elite guys. So I want that difference maker tight end. That's also something, if I have the opportunity, I want to take that.
I've got to say, I am always hesitant to take Pitts that early, but the draft always looks beautiful when you do it.
He won't make it back to me. That's the thing. And then by the time it's back to me, I will just have to punt tight end. So it's like that's why I said I would trade back if I could. But at this point, I think Pitts can be a difference maker. That's why I took him to 301.
I love it. Okay, so I started next at the 104. I had Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, and Jonathan Taylor went before Saquon. He's just that player. I know that everybody talks about, running back can be replaceable and all of that, but Saquon is just a different cat, man. I think he is that generational talent, and I don't like to use that about every player. They say it about Zeke, they said it about Fournette. They say it about McCaffrey. I actually think the one is Saquon. And even with the ACL tear, I think that he's going to get that usage. He has the ability to catch the ball. He's just a difference maker as far as changing your defensive scheme to stop the Giants. And I think ultimately he's going to be a big part of whatever they do. And then I ended up with Calvin Ridley on the way back. I was really happy about that. I like Ridley. He is getting, closer to that, to that upper age for wide receiver, but I like to let the wide receivers run, and I'm playing a win. I don't necessarily worry about age in these first couple rounds. Coming back in the third round, Joe Mixon, he doesn't have a lot of competition to go with him. He's always been a good talent, had some trouble staying on the field, but in the weeks that he was healthy last year, pre the foot injury, I think he was playing really well. And I think he can, he's actually taken a dip a little bit. And even though he's an older running back, I also think that he has that 3-down ability that you're looking for still. And in the third round, that's great. Tyler went at 106. He went with Justin Jefferson at 106. Then he came back around with CeeDee Lamb and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire. CJ, you want to talk about Tyler stuff? I
mean, none of this surprises me. He has Justin Jefferson as his top wide receiver, and with that board, I clearly expect him to go there. CeeDee Lamb, I believe, is his wide receiver 6, and then we're both pretty high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire next year at a value. So I also was considering Edwards-Helaire my pick, knowing that, but I went with that position. So I love his draft so far, and then he takes one of my favorite guys right there with Allen Robinson. That's got a huge bump by getting a new quarterback coming in. So, yeah, I'm loving his team so far. He's got the 3 wide receivers locked in. He's got the number 1 running back sitting there. So, I like it.
Anybody else want to comment on Tyler's stuff while he listens and can't say anything to defend himself?
I was looking at Robinson at the turn when I took Allen. I really love both. Obviously you have a little bit more youth with Robinson, but I really don't freak out about ages, especially with wide receivers. So I kind of went with a little bit more upside, in my opinion, with Allen. But honestly, Robinson was right there.
Yeah, it was a great pick by him there. All right. Next up was Mike. Go ahead and give me your team, Mike. I'm trying to make a pick here real quick.
All right, so far, and my strategy here, I usually have 2 strategies. One is win now, drafted like a redraft team, or 2 is I just tank from the start, and I just basically, after the first 4 rounds, I draft nothing but rookies. Obviously, that's for if I don't win. So I went with A.J. Brown first, Ezekiel Elliott, Patrick Mahomes. I understand it's 1 quarterback, but when you think about your matchups, you want to win every matchup inside your matchup, right? So it's like every matchup has a mini matchup in it. Quarterback versus quarterback, running back versus running back, and so on and so forth. So Patrick Mahomes is typically considered head and shoulders above the rest of his competition. So I know it's 1 quarterback, but that quarterback position is settled for a long time now if this were a real league. And then at the 4-6, I went with Brandon Ayuk. May seem like a bit of a stretch. I'm a big Ayuk believer. Love his talent. I think it's a good spot. You can see Shanahan schemes for him heavily. So I don't hate him at the 4-6. And this seems to be in his range, anywhere between I've seen early as the 3rd round, but that was a real stretch. And I've seen him as late as the 8th round in startups too. So I think it's a good spot for him. I like Ayuk a lot, and I'm a huge believer. So hopefully he doesn't turn out like the other San Francisco wide receiver I used to like, Dante Pettis.
Oh.
But you live and you learn.
Oh, no.
I was a big Dante Pettis fan too, and I'm a Giants fan, so I still believe. But no, I don't think he's going to do anything anytime soon.
I don't think so. He's still getting a paycheck though, so that's something for him.
He is getting a paycheck, and I think this is his last, I think this is his 5th year. So I think after this, if he doesn't do anything, he's definitely a drop. I don't know anybody who's keeping him on their dynasty roster even now, other than Michael apparently. All right, let's go on.
I sold all my shares; they're all gone.
Oh, good.
They're all gone.
All right, Vic, tell me what you got going at 109.
All right, actually that was a auto pick. I wanted Stephon Diggs at the 109, so it worked out for me. But I'll take DK there at the 109.
How you auto picking on my show, Vic? What's happening?
Man, I guess I wasn't paying attention. I didn't know we started to draft. I thought we were just doing intros, but it's all good. It worked out.
All right, it's cool. We just having a good time out here. Go ahead, talk to me a little more about what's going on there.
Yeah, man. So usually I like to lead off with my wide receivers. So for me, Diggs, he's a game breaker. I mean, you guys know Buffalo wants to throw the ball, and he can hit a home run at any point. Whenever the ball's in his hands, he's a violent runner. And then looking at DK, I'm not mad at that. I'm not really too high on DK. I mean, I know he's nice, but I would have liked to have grabbed Lamb there. But we already know DK is still a stud, so up and coming. He's still promising in Dynasty. And then the running backs were drying out, so I had to jump on Miles Sanders. I still love his upside. I know the running back room appears to be crowded there, but Sanders, he's still the man there. He's still the number one. And then I had to get my guy Darren Waller, man. He's a baller. These tight ends are starting to fly. If you got Kelsey, you got Pitts, you got Kittle. If you see Waller, at least for your matchup, that's not an easy matchup, or at least an easy win, so to speak. So Waller's going to put some pressure on that tight end position. So I like what I built so far, and I'm on the clock. And believe it or not, I'm not really liking what's right here. I should probably go running back, but I'm not. So I'm going to get my quarterback, man. I'm going with Lamar.
I love it. I think he's so underrated right now. I think that, especially with what they've done in the passing attack, adding Bateman, even adding Tylan Wallace, I think that that's going to be a really nice receiving core. I know everybody is a little worried about how much Lamar runs, but he was a good passer in college. He had good passing numbers in college. And I think he can do that again with a guy like Bateman. I think that's about it. Kate, go ahead and tell me what you got here at 110.
At the 110, I got Devontae Adams, which, I mean, regardless of whether or not you think Aaron Rodgers is coming back, he should not be drafted as the wide receiver 5. He has been a lock for just a monstrous target share each and every year. He's a PPR machine. He's a touchdown machine. He's at least wide receiver 2 for me. At least.
I'd agree there. And what do you? Oh, I hear some. Hold on. What was that? Who did that?
That was me. Yeah, wide receiver 2 is a little bit high for Dynasty. I can see that for a redraft, even with or without Aaron Rodgers. His age is still just something to consider with that. I mean, I would probably put wide receiver 4 for me. It'd probably go Jefferson, Reek, AJ Brown, and then Adams, and purely on age.
See, and I think I'm somebody who tends to not draft as much for age. When I'm looking at my Dynasty rosters, the general time frame that I'm considering is 2 to 3 years, because that's the point of me wanting to win this championship. That's the window I'm going to give myself before I blow everything up. And I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 for at least the next 3 years.
Oh, I don't disagree with that, like a thought process or anything like that. The biggest thing I look at with this, though, is that the difference between the points he could score this year and the other player that I listed ahead of him, if each of them tears their ACL tomorrow, Adams loses the most value compared to a Jefferson or an AJ Brown. And that's kind of like the difference I look at when it comes to, like, the points are marginal, and then whoever just loses the whole season, how much does that affect their age? So that's kind of where the break off point is for me.
I love that. That's awesome.
I actually use that same thinking, and that's why Saquon Barkley is my number 2. He did tear his ACL. I actually that was a thing for me when he came back. I thought that his value, he's not going to go anywhere in that. Does anybody else feel like Saquon is maybe a little underrated at this point?
I mean,
definitely underrated.
I wouldn't say in this draft he is, but in general, he's acquirable for the first time in years in a Dynasty league.
Yeah,
so you can actually trade for him and other people, but in your league. But I think you got him at about. I have him as running back 3, so I can't hate on it too much.
No, I also think in these things in very loose tiers. I think of drafting and all of this a lot like poker. Where even if you're right and you have the exact right read, variance is going to come and bite you. And the guy who is maybe accurately thought of as your wide receiver 5 is the wide receiver 1 because he was just the healthiest that year and scored the most touchdowns. And I'll pull them up here. I have for my running backs, I have about 5 or 6 that really go. So I have McCaffrey, Saquon, Kamara, Cook, Chubb, and Taylor. And not that I want to take any of them. I don't want to take every single one of them at 101, but I'm really happy with any of those going in as my first running back. And the variance is pretty much, at the end of the day, it might just be who's hurt and who's not. All right, let's move on to John. He took us at the back end at 112. John, tell me a little bit about what's going on right now with your team.
Well, like I said, this is my first 1 QB draft in 4 years, so I'm definitely rusty. I can feel it. I don't even know how much I love taking Dak Prescott at in the 5th round. But when you're on the turn, you do have to reach a little bit sometimes, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I kind of did the same thing with my running backs in the beginning, but I absolutely love Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. They're both week winners by themselves, and so when you have both of them, maybe you hope that they do the week winning on individual weeks or different weeks so that you can go ahead and win those weeks every week. But I paired that with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and DJ Chark. I'm loving that. As I'm looking at the board, like I said, I don't necessarily love the Dak pick because I still have T-Law out there, and maybe I could have gotten him a couple round or a round or two later or something. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't come back to me, and that's why when you're at the turn, you kind of have to make those choices and you have to take those reaches.
But you are set at that running back spot as long as no injuries occur. I know it's likely for a running back to get injured at this point in the NFL, but coming back and still getting those 3 receivers is pretty nice, even with Dak there in the middle.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely happy with the team build. I love everything about it. Obviously, I need to continue. Obviously, I need to get my tight end at some point. But I'd be very happy with this team for sure, and I would definitely be competing. I have a little bit of youth, but I also have where I'm going to be putting up points every week.
Okay, now we've gotten through a little more than 6 rounds. CJ just took his 2nd pick or his 7th pick at 701. I want to talk about, at this point in the draft, you're past your top 60. You're past those players that obviously are really going to be the huge game changers, the people that are going to sort of define your season. But at this point, what are we looking for here? Are we looking for what am I trying to say here? Are we looking for the best value still? Are we looking for what supply and demand is dictating? Are we just looking for any guaranteed touches whatsoever? And we're just going to go right on down the line. CJ, go ahead. What is your strategy from here on out?
I mean, it's always just value at this point. I was kind of looking at the whole board. I mean, I got super lucky that my guess was right that Kareem Hunt would fall back to me in the 4th when I took Pitts. So that was kind of like an important spot there. I was hoping for Hunter if I felt like that Carson. But for the rest of the draft, I mean, that's why I took Trevor Lawrence. There's only 2 guys I have left in this like elite tier of quarterbacks. So I wanted to make sure I got one of them, and Justin Herbert was the second one who just went. So that gives me another positional advantage over part of the league because, again, they're in the same elite tier. And then the rest of it's literally just value at this point because I've got a pretty locked area, and I have nothing punted at a position.
Yeah. For me, I actually just auto-picked Tyler Boyd. I am not happy about that. But you know what? When I went through this, at the 4th round, I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe Josh Allen would make it work. I'm still very happy with having Josh Allen. I think he can be the number 1 quarterback this year. But again, variance, who knows? But I think I might have taken that pick back because right now I am playing catch up, I feel like, at wide receiver, at least as far as finding players that are going to stick around for a long time on my team. I like Odell Beckham. I like Julio Jones that I picked up. But every year feels like it could be Julio's last year. I know it's probably all in my head and he'll be here for another 3 or 4 or something like that and do great. But I do worry about his age. And even now, I'd be thinking about trying to trade him and get my compensation for him if I had him in a dynasty league. Odell Beckham, I like him a lot. I believe in him a lot, but also it's hard to tell with him. I think that right now he's in good with the team. He doesn't have any off the field issues or anything that I think would be causing a distraction. I think they're in a winning window. They could be competing for the Super Bowl this year, and I hope that that's enough with Baker Mayfield, that he doesn't have to try and force it to Odell Beckham anymore, and Odell can actually do what he's there. But there's always that off chance that his hamstring tightens up again, or something else crazy happens. He marries a football net or whatever he's doing. So I just, at this point, I'd be looking for more running back depth. And I'd be, I'm still looking to make sure that I have good receivers, because I know you can replace running back a little bit more in the rookie draft or on the, out and trade. But for me, I'm going to be still looking for receivers and running backs at this point. I might try and grab a tight end, but I think the ship has sailed on getting the best one I can look for. I might look for some later spots here. Tyler kept going with Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster. And it looks like Tyler's looking to go for some young talent here. If his comment is anything to be believed.
Tyler is the ageist of ageists out there. He will bump up anybody in their early 20s. Like, he loves them so much. And you can see that a lot with the way he drafted. I mean, the oldest guy is Allen Robinson.
I like really young players when they break out young or they declare early. That's certainly a thing for me that gets my attention. But I worry about players like a Kadarius Toney or somebody like that who broke out their final year. I know was a quarterback to start. Sometimes, for guys, early 20s that have that pedigree, even in the first round, I do get worried about taking them over some tried and true talent that's already in the league. And then, Michael, what's your strategy here from here on out?
We're going best value. Some ceiling here for the rest of the draft. Just in case anyone's wondering, I never really worry about filling out my roster. I don't have to set a lineup until early September, so a lot can happen between now and then. Guys are going to lose their jobs. Guys are going to get hurt. They're going to get released. Obviously, lose their job, same thing. They might get replaced on the team by somebody else. You never know. So my strategy is always to draft best available and then trade accordingly if I need to. And obviously, when you trade, just don't try to seem too desperate. You need something. So I'm just going for upside value, high ceiling. Maybe try to pick some safe floors here. And I know my draft looks weird, Mark Andrews and then Robert Tonyan back-to-back. But if you do look at the lineup, you see that you can flex tight ends. So that's one of the reasons I took back-to-back tight ends. Plus, it's always good to have a solid backup at tight end, too. You were saying that you didn't like some of the tight ends?
Not that I don't like the tight ends, but at this point, I've got, I'm still waiting. I might as well wait because I think there are some players in the later rounds that I'll take. You're always worried about being that guy who's always on the waiver wire for tight ends in a dynasty league. I know that for sure. I'm a victim of that. But at this point, I'm willing to wait a little longer still.
It's funny, too, if you look at this draft as opposed to last year's. If we did this same draft last year, obviously taking these rookies out, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith are still on the board. And that would not be the case in May of 2020 as opposed to May of 2021. So it's just crazy, thinking about it. And I don't know about you guys, but I think I'm hands off of both of those guys from here on out, even if Mac Jones becomes a starter relatively soon.
I'm actually really intrigued to know what that offense is going to look like.
It's going to be interesting for sure.
I think it might not be as good for fantasy, but I think it might be really interesting and can, right now I think that tight end can unlock so much. You see it with a guy like Kelsey, with a guy like Kittle or Waller. You see Kyle Pitts get drafted number 4 overall. And, with 2 out there, both good pass catchers, I think that can help a young quarterback. So I don't know what it's going to mean for fantasy, but for football, I'm actually really excited to see what it looks like. All right, next up, Vic, what you got? What's been going on in your draft, and what are you trying to do in these last 2 picks?
Yeah, so I typically like to go with young vets early on. Of course, Diggs getting a little bit older there from a dynasty standpoint. Of course, I punted running back, so had to clean that up real quick. So you got Rojo, who's 23, going to be 24. He can hit a home run every once in a while, so I like that for my RB2. I'm actually going to go with a veteran in Mostert. So this is where I'm starting to clean up, my mess that I created. So I'm looking to just close it out with running backs.
Love it. I love it. All right, Kate, what do we got?
I am on the clock, and I have some big decisions to make here in my life. Woo! So I think that the theme of my team has been win now. I think that's largely what I am here for. I have a lot of assets that are on the older side, but I think will have a big impact in 2020. So this is the kind of roster. I have Chris Carson, Myles Gaskin, Adam Thielen, Zach Moss, leave me alone, Terry McLaurin, Chris Godwin. Like, these are all guys that I can picture having a big impact in the season to come. And then I got Matthew Stafford at the 9-10, which I think is fantastic value. I love his situation with the Rams. And I feel like every single year we have this conversation about Matthew Stafford being a huge value. And suddenly we're not having that conversation as much as we usually do once he's got one of the best coaching staffs in the league, one of the best receiving cores. Like I don't get it. We gotta be higher on Matthew Stafford. I think he's not that old. He's got some gas left in the tank.
All right, I got Cal here asking me what's going on with my picks with Cook over Curtis Samuel. Cal, I'm running a show here, and I just got caught up, and I got on the auto pick. I hate auto picks, and I did it to myself. Put me on blast. It's all on me this time. Usually we do no auto picks, and I have them turned off, and we have a little sniping party with whoever we want. I don't know what happened there. I must have got my sleeper setting set up. Iowa in the NFL knows how I mess that up all the time. But yeah, I think still Brandon Cooks is still going to be. I know that everyone sees Nico Collins coming, and he's a nice young rookie, but Brandon Cooks is going to be the guy who gets those targets clear off. You've got Curtis Samuel there. He is familiar with the Ron Rivera system. It wasn't the most successful thing for him. Not that I think that he's going to be a bust or anything, but I just don't see him getting the volume that he really, that you're really going to want from a guy like Cook still has. Even though he's a little bit older, he's put up 1,000 yards pretty much every year that he's been playing. And I don't see that stopping this year because they're going to need him. As long as he can stay on the field, that's happening. So I didn't actually pick him, but I will defend him against Curtis Samuel. So there. And John, you just finished up your draft here. Tell me what happened in that back end of the draft.
Yeah, so to answer your earlier question, I think it all depends on your build. Some people are trying to trade back and they're trying to accumulate picks, and then of course it doesn't make sense to go after like a Trey Sermon or certain running backs and stuff like that because you don't need them at that point. So yeah, you can say best player available, and that's very true, but I think you also have to think of your build and what you're doing with your team. Now, obviously, like I said, with my team, I am playing for this year with that build. So I went with the Trey Sermon pick, have a third running back here, and then I went with Noah Fant as my tight end, and then for the last 2 picks, probably a little confusing for some, but I went with teammates. I went with Corey Davis and Denzel Mims, and it's just kind of random, but I really like both of those players, and then of course they ended up being teammates. But I do think that that like somebody's going to stand out. Now maybe you can't, maybe not both, but one of them will probably stand out. And as my 4th and 5th wide receivers, I'm definitely willing to take that chance in the 9th and 10th round.
I love it. And just so you know, you never, ever would have gotten Trey Sermon if I wasn't on that auto pick for Tyler Boyd. I definitely would have taken him there. You know, if I thought about it, I might have even taken him ahead of Odell Beckham. I really do love Trey Sermon this year. I love the fit. I love that they traded up to get him, even though it is in the third round. But that third round has had a lot of really valuable running backs come out of it. And really, I think Trey Sermon is a slam dunk pick. I know that they run a committee of backs who can really all be the lead back in that San Francisco offense. But I think that what they're saying with their draft capital means a little more than just, okay, we're gonna add him to the mix. I think he's gonna be the guy sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I could see 2021 not being the greatest year for Sermon. Maybe a second half of the year kind of thing, but definitely next year and going forward, I could see it being his job. He's not I don't think he's the greatest running back in the world, but he's going to have all the opportunity in the world, at least in future years. So I definitely don't mind getting him there, and I feel like that's really a good price when you're seeing guys like Zach Moss and Fournette and Ronald Jones going off the board. I'd kind of rather have the upside of a rookie that we don't truly know what he's going to be. At least he has that upside.
And the other thing about Trey Sermon is some people, knock him for his production at Ohio State. That's a huge program. They run more than one back from time to time. They're a team, and he also he went through the transfer portal to get to Ohio State, which makes it a little more, he tried to take his future and put it in his own hands. He ended up doing it at a huge Big Ten school, and he played great. He had some great film, and I really do think that Trey Sermon might be that back that you might not expect, and he can still maybe contend to even be, one of the top rookies of this year. I mean, I'm not going to take him in a rookie draft necessarily in the first round, but as soon as the second round comes around, I'm looking for him, and I'm going to make it a priority to try and get him.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's see. We just wrapped up the draft here. CJ, tell me a little bit about what you did in these last couple picks.
So again, this is a kind of the rounds where I'm looking at how I want to build. And at this point, the running backs were a dead zone that I didn't really want anything for a couple rounds. So I went with some high upside guys in the last picks with Darnell Mooney and Terrace Marshall. Two guys I think that I can throw into my flex and be happy with it with a guy like Mooney, and someone I can let sit and kind of develop a young player like Terrace Marshall. And then I ended up with James Conner because I only had two running backs at this point. This is around the time where I start snagging running backs or everybody else's handcuffs. So because I went running back less early on. And in these rounds, the receivers are okay. But if I have someone else's handcuff and then their running back goes down, I just got a starting running back, even though I didn't invest in it early on.
And I think that James Conner's got that goal line upside too, even without it. And I love the Terrace Marshall pick. I mean, I don't know if it's panning out this year, but I could see a lot of 50-yard bombs to Terrace Marshall from Sam Darnold. And maybe next year he starts to really even make a bigger name for himself. I just took a bath in this back end of the draft here. I ended up at round 6, Odell Beckham, Tyler Boyd, Brandon Cooks. We talked about those. I should have had Trey Sermon. Brandon Cooks, I'll take him. A.J. Dillon in the 9th round. I actually really like that. I think that ultimately he is a great back. He's one injury away, and he is also a player that you can trade and add. He's one of those good players that can sort of make a trade happen in your dynasty league because he does have that value. He does, even though he's not getting the touches, you can see that he's a really talented young player. And then I don't know if I'd take him in the 10th round, but I just wanted to end with a tight end because why not? I went with Logan Thomas. I don't know what his targets are going to look like this year. They do have a lot more weapons, but he was getting a huge target share, and he was running a ton of routes. So I will take that at tight end, and I'll probably draft 2 or 3 more by the end of my draft if this were a 25 or 30 round draft. Let's go with Tyler's pick. CJ, you want to give me a little bit on Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, he just literally loaded up on the receivers, which is something that doesn't surprise me from Tyler. He's definitely going with the ability to be able to move some more high-profile guys that he has if he really wants to start going for a ransom. He's probably going to back end his roster with some more of the veteran picks. Because after that round 10, I think this is with the strategy, you go some youth into usable positions now. But I mean, I like everything that he did for the most part in the early rounds. I think we disagree on these last few picks personally. I think there's something to talk about, me and him, later on, because I'm not sure those are the proper value points for me. But again, he's got a lot of receivers he can move that are very, very easy to move for a high price.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about Tyler's team is even if you don't like the players, they are young and you can trade them. And I had tried to get at Tyler on Twitter a while ago, and I was asking him about how many years he thinks he projects out, and he doesn't think that way. He doesn't think the 2 to 3 year window that some might. He really thinks on like value, like the stock market, and I really do love that.
Yes, that's one thing with Tyler. It's always about that. He's the one that got me really thinking about, like, what if my player tears their ACL tomorrow? What would he be worth? Does he stay at value or does he go up? And that's something that I really appreciate that he got that mindset to me and really helped me out in building teams in the off season, because you really want to be buying a lot of the win now players, in my opinion, like right into the middle of the season if you're in it, or just have these young assets as well.
That's right. And like a guy like Ruggs, I really don't like Ruggs at all. At least
neither does Tyler. That's the funny thing. Tyler does not like Ruggs.
Exactly. I really don't like Ruggs at all. But not for anything. Even if he stinks, like he's still going to be out there pretty much all year. They're stuck with him. And by the end of the year, somebody's if you make a trade, he's a guy you can throw in that somebody's going to say, fine, he's a player, he's on the field, and that's sometimes that's all you need. You just need that guy that can make a trade, or that guy that can get you like a second round pick when you need it, or something like or anything like that, or just a way to move up in the drafts. Any kind of move with a young player, it's going to work out pretty well.
I'm interested. I want to talk to him later on and see what quarterback he was waiting on. Because I know he's got an eye on somebody in a round or two. So I wonder what that would be. And I still don't understand how I got more rookies than him, because he's usually the rookie guy.
Yeah, I should have known I was never going to get a rookie in this draft.
I apparently got all of them. I don't know how this happened, but
hey, it's cool. You'll love your team, and I'll give you my first later, and we'll you can just we'll go from there.
I think my team could win now too, even though I think I got a lot of usable assets for this year. All my rookies are going to start. So
you definitely do. And I think I do like Lawrence, especially long term. I might look for a second quarterback. I mean, obviously you'd be looking for another quarterback sometime later on. But yeah, I mean, it's still, you've got McCaffrey, you've got Chase. It's going to be a competitive team for sure. Oh, we got Tyler coming in. All right, Michael, tell me about the rest of your draft.
So I think you talked to me after I took Tunyon. So I went Leonard Fournette, Mike Davis, and Latavius Murray. And these are all good guys, I think, to kind of pick up if you're going with the zero RB strategy. We're looking at a pretty short shelf life, but they're going to be able to get put in your lineup and start. And if Fournette or any of these guys have a real hot week and you don't believe in them long term, ship them off, right? I usually would not take Latavius Murray this early. However, I do want to just say that I think he has standalone value if you look at the snap shares. Another guy I'd probably be looking at too is Gus Edwards. I didn't look and see if he was taken. Also, I think it is funny, Evan Ingram is still on the board in this draft too. So you did take Logan Thomas and you left Evan Ingram out there. I'm just curious, do you believe in Logan Thomas more, or you just want to talk about, you said that he ran a lot of routes last year, but you're concerned about what's going to happen. I know Fitzpatrick historically has not been the biggest user of the tight end. So just curious as to your thoughts there.
Yeah, you're right. I'm actually really not that big of a believer in Evan Ingram at this point. I'm still figuring out. I will admit again, I'm still figuring out my back end tight ends. I think in hindsight, again, I took a bath, but this is why we learn. This is why we mock draft. You make a ton of mistakes. You end up with a couple auto picks. So don't know how that happened, but
to show and do your draft at the same time, it's hard.
Yeah, you try to have 6 guests on. Some of them are here, some of them are not. Some of them get sick. Your mom's here until 8:30 watching your daughter when we didn't expect that to be happening, and things are going on and all these things. Yeah. But I in hindsight, I probably with that Cooks pick, I might have tried to go for Goddard. But Logan Thomas, I think he did a lot of good work as the tight end. I know that he's not necessarily compatible with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing. I don't know how long they're going to stay tied to Fitzpatrick either. And I just sometimes you just think you like the player, you like the talent, and you in Dynasty more than redraft, you can think a little less situational. You can think about, I really like the talent of this player, and I believe that will win out overall. All right, Vic, what do you got in these last couple picks?
All right, so I ended it out with some veterans. So I actually got some starters on the back end. So of course I went with some upside in the middle rounds with Devonta, getting my guy Rojo with some upside. But week 1, I'm looking to start Miles Sanders alongside Mostert. I mean, he's still the starter for right now. And then of course with the Las Vegas Raiders, Josh Jacobs, he has a history of missing some games in between, some injuries and also some DUIs apparently. So I like Kenyon Drake to step in and fill in if I need him to.
I don't hate it. Drake and Josh Jacobs, their stock both took a little hit when Drake went there, and the amount of money, I really just don't understand what the Raiders are doing. But yeah, but I think that their value, both of them, has gotten to a point where you can jump back in on them. I think 10th round for Kenyon Drake, even though he might not be that guy for Dynasty. If Jacobs gets hurt or anything like that, he's going to have that weekly ability to be on the field. And then when Jacobs gets hurt, or if he gets hurt, hopefully not, but if he does, that's still an option for you. And he's a good, valuable back. All right, Michelle. Wow. I am so sorry. I think she's in my head, I guess. I don't know.
She gets in everybody's head.
That's right. All right, Kate, give me those last 5 picks you had, and tell me what your strategy was.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's win now for me. I think this is a perfect sort of roster construction for that. I have enough youth in assets like Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin. I like having more youth at the wide receiver position. Went against that a little bit with Adam Thielen there, but he's a guy that I think is just a lock for like at least 10 touchdowns on a season. And I think, just with the way the running backs fell, I knew I needed to get some bodies on the field there. Chris Carson, Myles Gaskin, I think aren't long-term answers necessarily, but I do think that this is a team that can score a lot of fantasy points in 2020 particularly. So this would be me going all in and just throwing that Hail Mary for 20. I keep saying 2020. Am I living in 2020? 2021. Oh my goodness.
We're all just living in a simulation. It's all right.
For real. Oh my gosh. That was such a trip. 2021. I'm going all in 2021 with this kind of roster. And I mean, sometimes when the draft falls to you that way, I think it just the realistic thing to do is look at how long you project these guys to be valuable and play towards that. Myles Gaskin, I don't think he's long for the haul, but he could be a lock for 250 touches this season, and that counts for a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why when they didn't draft anybody until the 7th round, they drafted Jared Dokes. Why his value didn't raise a little bit. Not that there are many running backs that he can necessarily go farther ahead, but I thought that he might take a little bit of a bump. And I feel like he just stayed exactly where he was. But yeah, I think he's got that ability to produce. And I mean, he was great last year. He helped me, in my fantasy playoffs in multiple teams. And yeah, I think that Gaskin is a great pick there. I like. I even still like Hunter Henry in that background. Who knows in that end of the 10th round? Who knows if he ends up still being valuable again? I am intrigued by that Patriots offense. I really am.
I mean, let's be honest. Hunter Henry has been the more productive asset in fantasy football. Doesn't matter which way you cut it. I know Jonnu Smith is a pristine athlete. He is a solid tight end. Even in terms of blocking, PFF, I take it for what you will, graded Hunter Henry as the better blocker in the 2020 season. But really, like, sometimes we have to put those notions aside. I love Jonnu Smith as much as the next person, but I don't necessarily know how high his ceiling is. But I've seen enough from Hunter Henry that I'm pretty pleased with what he could do as one of the primary focal points in that offense.
Yeah, when a guy like Bill Belichick signs Hunter Henry, you know something's going on, right? All right, John, I think you actually went through all of your picks here at this point, so I'm actually going to turn before we go, and you're going to start for me, John, if you can. Does anybody have a team or two, and we can just sort of come up with a consensus? Do we have any other teams that were left here in the draft that we are particularly taken by, that we really like what they did in here?
Who is 105?
That's somebody from our sleeper channel, Primetime Mock. Join that. We do daily mock draft.
I like that build. You know, he's got an aging veteran in Kamara. You know, I don't necessarily love drafting Kamara in the first round of a dynasty draft anymore, but obviously we know he's going to put up points. Then Dobbins, ETN. So like he's not going to really have to worry about his running backs at all. And then you might be concerned, like, is he going to have wide receivers after that? But then he starts off with Amari Cooper, who I love.
Seriously.
Then T.J. Hawkinson, a tight end, Cooper Kupp, and Michael Pittman. Get out of here with that. But Justin Herbert at QB, and then it kind of falls off there at the end. But that start is pretty hot. And, you know, if you can kind of get some, like, aging vets or something like that later on in that draft, then with that start, you're going to be competing. You're going to be looking really good.
I agree. I think that's going to be key with that team is what the next few rounds would be. Like you'd be aiming for some of the aging vets that kind of can be plugged in there because realistically, this is a 3 wide receiver start league and only a singular flex. So the wide receiver does get a little bit elevated, even though it is, and on top of it, it's dynasty. So I think from 7 on is like round 8, 9, and 10 it could have been used a little bit better, in my opinion. But that start with because they already had 3 running backs and we only have 1 flex in this mock that we're doing right now for our starters. You can't use the Harris or the Hines unless an injury or bye week happens. And your wide receiver 3 is Pittman. I think that could have been better, but that start is like one of the best ones in this whole entire thing.
Yeah, and it's enough that even though, I mean, I don't want to like be mean or anything, but even though it wasn't the greatest end of the draft, you know, if he continued on, he could still make a good team out of it.
Oh, you definitely can. The downside is of that one, you would then be going into the next season trying to pick up your receivers off the rookie draft, which means you'd be waiting for that wide receiver 3 again, which once the veterans kind of age out. So I think, again, little stuff like that could have just, I think, elevated that team. It's already a strong team, but I think just like thinking of that in this kind of exercise.
Hey, I got to represent for my coach real quick. So you talked about Pittman and Hines. Always start them against the Titans. That's a guarantee. So there you go.
You know, I'm just going to go back to this Among Us fan. I'm guessing it's supposed to be Among Us. But I probably would have let ETN go and maybe taken my receiver there, although he probably still would have ended up with Amari Cooper, so I don't hate that. But if you could pair it with a Cooper and a Robinson, I think I would have loved his team a lot more. Not that I don't think ETN can't play. I don't think he's a good running back. I am a little concerned about the coaching staff though in Jacksonville. I have my doubts about Urban Meyer, and even with, I'm not even talking about the what this running back room BS that they're talking about this past week. Something about it just it seems like it's all a lot of a big circus. It's like I out here in Allentown. I grew up in New Jersey. I taught 10 minutes from Giants Stadium for a while. And you used to hear on New York sports radio when they talk about the Jets, and it was a circus. And this Jacksonville team with Tim Tebow and coaches who are abusive to their college players, and it's becoming a circus a little bit for me. And I don't really want a huge part of that, at least not at the running back position. I'd want to play. I will take Trevor Lawrence happily because he might ride that out. but the Urban Meyer regime definitely scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I can definitely.
It's a wild card. It's definitely a wild card.
All right. Well, we finished up our draft here. I want to thank all of our guests for coming by. Michael, tell the folks at home where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Rewind CEO. And Mark, you can meet me at the Lehigh Valley Mall if you want. So since we're practically neighbors, I live in Northampton.
Do you really?
I do,
yeah.
Man. I heard Allentown, and I was like, oh, there's only one of those that people will fess up to.
That's right.
So you can find me at Rewind CEO. DMs are always open. Don't DM the show account. I don't really check it very often. So if you have any questions or you want to tell me how stupid I look on camera or anything like that, which people have done before, feel free to hit me up.
We'll catch an Iron Pigs game or something.
That's great.
All right, CJ, hit me with your info.
Yeah, you can always find me at KidFlashFF. Also, you can always make sure to check out at the Dynasty Duo FF. I am the better half, in my opinion, of the Dynasty Duo. But since Tyler can't defend himself here right now, you can always find Tyler, who is drafting this one as well. Unfortunately, he's sick right now, at DLF_Karp. We actually just dropped our weekly podcast today on some under the radar veterans, which kind of pairs well with what we didn't get to with the later rounds. So make sure to go check that out.
And don't shortchange Tyler. There is an underscore in there, I think, right? At
DLF_Karp.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just making sure that everybody knows where Tyler is. Maybe you did. Maybe I'm just. I do things wrong all the time. I own them all the time, so it's fine. All right. So who we got next? John, hit him with your info for me.
Yeah, you can follow me at Dynasty Coach A, at Monocle Dynasty. Check out ContenderConnection.com. That's where all the articles, rankings, all that kind of good stuff go. And just put out my latest Take It or Leave It pod on Josh Allen, which is probably pretty controversial. So check that one out.
And Kate.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. You could follow me on Twitter at FF BallBlast. We post all of our work. We run the show over at BallBlast Football. Just dropped a new BallBlast Football podcast today, and just started up a new Dynasty show, the BallBlast Dynasty Playbook. Have a really good crew of people working over there, so be sure to check that out, ballblastfootball.com.
I was a short-term listener of the Red Shirts Dynasty podcast. I was sad to see that one go, but I try to get a bunch of these analysts on here, so I listen to a lot of fantasy content, and I try to listen to a lot of great minds. I listen, whether you know it or not, I listen to all of you. If you didn't know, I really want to thank you all for coming. Vic, before we get out of here, give us your information, man.
Yeah, you guys can follow me at ChiefSosaFF. I'm 1/3 of the Dynasty Bros, so you can follow us at Dynasty Bros FF. We drop weekly live episodes on Tuesdays around 7:30ish Eastern, and then episodes streaming for the rest of the week. So yeah, thanks for having me. This was a good time and great crew here.
And anytime any of you want to come back, or anyone you're affiliated wants to come back, we are always looking for guests. I thought we were going to have a few more. Sometimes we have a few less, but we're always excited to have everyone here at this draft party every week. Thank you all for watching Primetime Mock. Don't forget to go over to YouTube and subscribe to the show. And you can find me, Mark Shue, on Twitter at Primetime Mock. Thank you all for coming. Next week, we've got a Superflex Dynastart with another group of just absolute fire guests. So please come back. Thank you all for coming.